One of the biggest mistakes I think most business owners make is not learning about all the different facets of business. That the events we put on had to be fun because everybody's been to terrible charity events. You know, you only go to them because it's a charity event. I never liked the word balance because I think, you know, balance, to say you balance something implies that you're giving up a bit of something.
You have a fun side, a wild side.
Do I?
Matt Haycox is a seasoned entrepreneur, investor, mentor, and philanthropist who has transformed his initial setbacks into monumental success today. Starting with UK's largest strip club chain and facing a £40 million bankruptcy during the 2008 financial crisis, Matt has provided over £500 million in funding to UK businesses. He now uses his experience to mentor and support entrepreneurs worldwide through his podcast. Hi, Matt. Welcome to the pod. My first question is going to be something that people don't usually start a podcast with, but we're going to talk about £40 million bankruptcy. You are so vocal about coming back from something so intense like that 2008 financial crisis. So for me, it has been very inspiring learning your journey. Would you like to tell the audience what happened and how you got back from it?
So I guess long story short, my career has always been in business. I mean, I'd always wanted to be in business as a kid, and I first started to work. I left school at 18, did a few weeks at university, but realised I couldn't do uni and work at the same time. So I left and went to work in a family business. That was really my first, my first proper experience of business. It was a failing business, something my dad had invested in, and I was given the reins. I was, after kind of 8 to 10 weeks of me working there, he let me run it. And I was given every problem a business owner could possibly ask for, wow. Or so I thought at the time. As life goes on, I realise there's a new problem every day. But back then, I thought I'd had every problem possible thrown at me. And over the next 3 years, I mean, we had to restart that business, restaff that business. You know, customers didn't like us, suppliers didn't like us, the banks didn't like us. Nobody liked us. But we started from scratch and rebuilt that over the next 3 years, and I took it from a £300,000 loss to a £30,000 profit. And I always say, even back in the late 90s, that wasn't much money, but it was just a principle that I guess I'd been through that learning curve. I'd been given all the problems I could ask for, and in the 3 years that I would have been at uni, I did 3 years of business. And how old were you? I was 18 to 21 during that time, 18 to 21, 22. Wow. And then I left there. It was not, it wasn't where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. I think A, because it wasn't really an industry that interested me, and B, because, I'm much more suited in the kind of cut and thrust of, I guess, entrepreneurial life as opposed to, managing stable businesses. Right. So I left to go and work in leisure. I was not qualified to go and work in leisure, other than the fact that I like going out drinking. I thought I could drink, meet
like
girls,
every 20-year-old
at the same time. And that was really the start of my career that kind of fits in with the story that we talk about today. And I opened a strip club in March 2004. I was 23, and then over the next kind of 4 or 5, 6 years, built that up from 1 club to 11 clubs. We were the biggest operator in the UK, but I did it all using borrowed money. And at the same time I was building the businesses, I was effectively learning how to borrow money, using that money to build the clubs. But also not just doing the clubs, I opened bars and restaurants and hotels and juice bars, and I had a property portfolio. And fast forward to kind of January, February 2008, I had multiple 8-figure businesses. I was 27. I was, in my mind, riding high, making a lot of money, spending a lot of money, and then effectively overnight, come June 2008, it was the onset of what we call the credit crunch, the Great Recession. Right. As anyone who's old enough to remember it will remember, but it hadn't gone deep at that point. It was just starting, and what that meant was all the banks had stopped lending. They hadn't really felt any pain at that point, but they'd stopped lending. They were kind of reassessing their options. And for me, first it was a kind of a pause in lending. Then it was the rug was pulled out from under us. And in the space of about 8 weeks, I went from being, the golden boy with all of our lenders, all of our kind of financial partners, to the devil. And it's September 2008. All my businesses went into administration. I had personal guarantees across everything, and I was made bankrupt. And I went to bed one day with a big set of businesses and woke up the next morning with nothing, ready to decide what the next step was.
Wow. And you were 27.
It was in September 2008, so I was 27, yes.
Wow. And from that to having funded over 500 million pounds in the UK businesses that you currently handle, what are your core principles of investment and what is your philosophy? What would you tell startups now?
Well, I think there's probably a little middle piece to add into that, which is how we go from 2008 to now back in 2023, and that's so I had to restart. I didn't exactly know what I was going to do at the time, but I knew that I couldn't sit around doing nothing. I knew I had a wife and child to pay for, and I needed to make money for myself, and so I started off by being a finance broker, effectively, connecting people I knew who wanted to borrow money with lenders who wanted to lend it, and that's really been the start of the next 15 years for me. That I went from being a broker to being a lender, but the general principles of how I built that lending business were based around the fact that I knew what it was like to be a business owner and a business operator. I knew what it was like to need to borrow money, but I also knew what it was like to be on the side of the lender. And I tried to, I guess, marry my experience as a business owner who struggled both with problematic businesses and also was struggling to raise money. And when I talked to my borrowers, it was very much from the case of, look, I've been in your shoes, I've been on your side of the table.
Absolutely.
First of all, I know how to help you. Second, if you're honest with me, I can help you fix your problems as well as raise the money. And so really the lending business that we've built today is very much based on the principles of being a business owner first and foremost, and I guess I'm not going to say a lender second, because obviously lending is the core business, but it's very easy for lenders to sit up in their ivory towers looking down at small businesses, and kind of decline without really understanding what goes on the kind of grassroots, on the street level. But we've experienced it from all sides of the table, and that's really what's made our business model today. So going back to your question of what do I look for in a business?
Yes.
So what I look for isn't necessarily the answer to what everybody else should look for, but I think for me, the biggest mistakes I've made in lending or investing come from doing things outside of my kind of core competency, outside of my comfort zone. So when it comes to what I like not startup businesses, for example. I like to see an established business. If it's not profitable, I certainly like to see that it's got cash flow. I like to have some kind of asset security to fall back on, because again, I've seen time and time again that it doesn't matter how good a business looks on paper, it doesn't matter how established something is, and we see it day in, day out. Companies that have been around for 50 years, companies that have been around for 150 years, it means nothing. Times change, economies change, technologies change, and these businesses can disappear overnight. So I do short-term lending. And again, I like it to be short term, because my crystal ball can only work for 12 or 18 months, and I like to have some kind of asset there to fall back on, because I know that no matter how best laid somebody's plans are, things can always go wrong. But that's just my model. Plenty of other people are out there making money from things that I hate. There's some people out there who are fantastic at investing in startup businesses. Some people who are fantastic at investing in technology businesses or scientific businesses. It's not a place for me, because I know that I don't like the startup space, and I know that I don't understand technology. I know that I don't understand science, etc.
Right.
So I think the biggest advice for me, for anyone investing or anyone lending, is to stick to things that you know and understand.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about my failure. My first startup failed. It was my core competency, but when I had to, it was a decor store, and I'm an architect, so I thought I could do it. And when it came to technology, upscaling it. This was back in 2008 when in India, e-commerce wasn't that big, right? Now there are so many brands selling stuff online, but I couldn't upgrade or upskill at that point. And my core competency, as you said, was not technology. So that is where my startup failed. And I absolutely love talking about failures, and that's how we also connected. That you always keep talking about learning from your failures. So can you tell us one specific mistake, or that one big mistake that most businesses, most entrepreneurs end up doing, and something they could avoid?
I think for me, one of the biggest mistakes I think most business owners make is not learning about all the different facets of business. And there are, there's so many different things in business to learn. And I think two key skills which entrepreneurs never, or certainly business owners never seem to learn and understand is A, finance, and B, marketing. And these are two areas that are normally outsourced to, whether it's staff in their business or whether it's external agencies. But, they're two absolutely fundamental areas within a business. From a marketing perspective, if you can't generate leads, if you can't attract customers, it doesn't matter how good your product is, it doesn't matter what the rest of your processes are, you're never getting any customers, you're never making any money. And if you don't understand the finances of the business, if you don't know the difference between profit and cash flow, if you don't know the difference between a profit and loss account and a balance sheet, and you hand that over to an accountant, listen, I'm not saying all accountants are bad, but there's so many bad accountants out there. There's so many bad everything, bad lawyers, bad marketing people, bad whatever. But if you don't have, I'm not saying you need to be a qualified accountant to be a business owner. I'm not saying you need to be a university educated marketeer to be a business owner, but you've got to have enough skill sets in all of these different areas to know whether or not the people that work for you or the people that contract to you are pulling the wool over your eyes. And I would expand that for all the different areas of business, but key skills for me live in marketing and finance.
Awesome. Like, this is something even I've experienced on a personal level, where I left all the finances to my accountant, and of course it didn't turn out. That's a story for another day. So, Matt, you have a foundation, Matt Haycox Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit more about your philanthropical side? How did that come out? Was it because of your life experiences, or you always had that in you?
Yeah, like most things I've ended up getting involved with, it was just an accident, really. Obviously I've given to charity, whether that's money or time over the years, as I'm sure most people have. But around 2016, I was at a football match in the UK. I was only even at this football match because I was actually financing the football club at the time, and I met a young guy there, a young guy called Alfie, who had cerebral palsy, and he was there with his family trying to raise money to have an operation that wasn't available on the health service back in the UK. The operation was going to be done in the UK, but it wasn't. It was something that needed to be paid for privately. He was, unable to afford. Never mind all of it, even part of it. And it was a £50,000 operation from memory that they were trying to fundraise from. I got talking, and originally I thought they probably only had a little bit left to raise. When I got talking to them, it turned out that they probably had most of the money left to raise. So I got involved, helped them, I guess, with a bit of publicity, a bit of PR, and donating myself. And it was a process that took, let's say, 3 months to raise the money, 2 or 3 months to raise the money. But then after they raised the money, it was almost like, well, people think that's the big job done. Now he just needs to go for the operation. It was almost when a whole new level of story started, because not only did the family not have the money, they didn't really have, let's say, the life experience or life skills to know what, when they travelled from their hometown to the town where the operation was going to be, where do we stay? How do we book a hotel? How do we deal with aftercare? There was so many things that they just didn't understand, that I thought, these guys don't just need money, they need support, and it's not just before the operation, it's after the operation. So it was something that I was involved in the process of the whole way through. And I just enjoyed it. There was no angle, there was no agenda. I just very much enjoyed, I guess, seeing through to fruition, something that I've been involved in from the outset. And I decided that we'd create the foundation to go and solve more problems, change more lives like that, because I've got a good contact base, but whether it's people I know or whether it's people that, let's say, want my attention, either way, they're people I can go to for money, for support. And I thought I can use this network to put 2 or 3 events a year on where we raise some money, and then we'll go and use that money to go and do more cases like Alfie. And my only 2 real rules were that the events we put on had to be fun, because everybody's been to terrible charity events. You only go to them because it's a charity event. You would not go there if it was like a commercial event. And I wanted to make that, even if it was a charity event, people would still want to go, because I can pull in favours in year 1, but I can't keep pulling in favours every year saying come again. So I wanted to make the events good enough that people wanted to come to. And then the rule with spending the money, or donating the money, if you like, to causes, was that it had to be things where we could really see that we'd made a difference. And it's always a difficult conversation, when it comes to other people's, charities and charity interests, because there's no right or wrong answers. But for me, whether it's my own personal money or whether it's the money of people who've donated that effectively are doing it because of me, I want to be able to show them with absolute clarity where that money's gone and how it's made a difference. And as much as it's important, for example, to raise money for malaria in Africa or AIDS in wherever it may be, to put £100,000 donation into that, nobody sees it. It doesn't touch the size. It's very difficult to get emotionally attached to. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just for me, if I'm taking someone's money, I want to be able to see the journey of the child, of the family, all the way along. So we didn't really have a rule of we must donate a huge amount. It just had to be that we've got to be able to see. You've got to be able to see with our own eyes what an impact we're making. So at the bigger end, we've done things like the cerebral palsy operations. At the smaller ends, we built a climbing frame and tidied up the garden for a lady who's a foster mother. Only £1,500, £2,000. But the difference it made to this woman who brings in all these horrendously abused kids, and she just had a shitty garden with with nowhere to play, and this £1,500, £2,000. Now you see these kids every day loving the climbing frame, and it's down the road from me, so I used to pop in and have a pizza with them and stuff. And it's not that my answer's right and your answer's wrong. It's just that's what works for me, and I want to be able to see what we've done
and do more while you can.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you a question. People keep asking me, why Dubai? You have all your businesses in the UK. I have a bunch of things happening in India, but we live in Dubai most of our time. So why Dubai?
Well, I came to Dubai by accident. It was just a holiday where I ended up staying. But as that staying became more prolonged, I then, let's say, accidentally found the benefits of Dubai. And I say accidentally, look, if I knew what I knew now, I would have come to Dubai many, many years ago. Absolutely. And done it more proactively. But for me, Dubai, let's get past the simple things of no tax and lots of sun. They're almost like easy and a given. But then when it comes to cleanliness, safety, opportunity, quantity of high caliber people, the general mindset of everybody who's here, whether that's from billionaires through to receptionists or massage therapists, everybody comes here and has a happy, hungry outlook on life. Whereas, and this, I always say I hate to be an England basher, but I spend 10 minutes in England and I'm on suicide watch.
Is it that bad?
Well, you know what? You probably say the same. You probably say the same about your country. The Spanish person probably says the same. Yeah. I don't. I mean, we all find ways to hate on where we come from, don't we? But kind of jokes aside, Dubai for me is leaps and bounds ahead of everywhere else, and the country's running away where shit just happens. It gets done. I mean, they can build a 100-story skyscraper here quicker than we can fix a roundabout in England.
That's absolutely
and
true.
I'm yet to find a negative. Maybe
I'm still looking for one. I'm still looking for one. Matt, wrapping up this conversation, you have a fun side, a wild side to you, which we've just only heard of. I'll definitely source some clips from Alicia.
Oh yeah.
But
what's she been giving out?
But how do you? This is all about balance, I want to know, because of course, you've had a great life experience of building. How do you manage the whole work-life balance conversation? How do you manage it?
I never liked the word balance, because I think, balance, to say you balance something implies that you're giving up a bit of something for a bit of something else. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that I don't ever have to do things I don't want to do. Of course I do. But I think in the main, for me, my balance is just I do whatever I want to do anyway. It's not that, I carve out 4 hours a week for the children and 3 hours a week for the missus. I think, for me, I do what I want to do. I do what feels right. And what's right for me is not what's right for you, is not what's right for her.
Yeah, there's no recipe to it.
But I think, ultimately, and we always talk about success. The word success tends to go hand in hand with finances. But for me, as important as the money bit is, I always say that unless you're happy, then you're not successful. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, and you can also be very happy without having much money at all. So that's always my key metric. That am I happy? Am I in a good mood? Not always in a good mood, but
that's very important.
I think I'm there most of the time, and I think most people do too many things that they don't want to do, that they actually don't have to do. They spend too much time, pleasing other people and not thinking about themselves. And I think maybe as I've got older, I've got better at being a bit more selfish about the things I want to do, but not selfish in a way that affects other people. Just that, I know what I like, and I'll just do more of it.
And I also feel, because there is no fear of failure, sometimes we end up doing things we enjoy doing and we like to do.
The fear of failure is normally based around what other people will say about you. And again, for me, that's an easy one that, I've never really given a shit what anybody says about me anyway.
Yeah, likewise.
And therefore, I mean, listen, there's obviously other downsides to failure now and again. I mean, it's not great fun going bankrupt,
Of course,
but invariably, the reason most people don't try things is because of the risk of what are other people going to say if it doesn't work out. And ultimately, those people aren't going to be there to celebrate with you if it goes right anyway. They're not probably people that you really care about either. True. So stop thinking about other people's opinions and start thinking about your own happiness.
I think that's a great advice for our audience as well. But do you want to wrap it up with like one life mantra or something that you would like to tell young entrepreneurs who are trying to do something?
I think I would probably say be careful what you optimize for, which is something that I've thought about a lot more lately over the last 6 to 12 months myself. That why are you doing what you're doing?
Yep.
And I spent the very early part, let's say from my early part to most recently in my life, going out there to build businesses to make money, and then waking up one day and thinking, you know what, I've actually made a rod for my own back with a lot of these things. I might have the money or the perceived let's say trappings of success from the outside, but inside, I'm running on a hamster wheel, keeping everything going. And I actually look at what I want nowadays, and I always say I'd be much happier in a 1-bedroom apartment than a penthouse. Absolutely. As long as I could turn my phone off for a week and it wouldn't actually matter what would happen when it was gone, as opposed to, I can sit on the boat, but I'm sat on the boat and I'm looking at my phone all day. Shit, I got to deal with this, I got to deal with the other. So I think my biggest advice when you're really starting is to decide what the ultimate outcome you want is, right, and build your business or build your life around that. Otherwise, you might wake up 10, 20, 40 years down the line and you've achieved success in somebody else's eyes and misery in your own. So
wow,
it's almost a depressing way to finish.
So impactful. That's so impactful. But yes, I will end with a question. Because we were talking about the life you want now, but what does the future at Matt Haycox Foundation or your other businesses, what does the future look like?
Nothing wildly different to what it is today, I don't think. I can't really ever see me doing a different line of business other than investing in other businesses, lending to other businesses. It's an area that I'm good at, and it's an area that interests me, and every day is still a different day, because even though the lending money might be the same, the people that borrow it are always very different, so that always provides variety. I think the only thing that I'd like to probably change or get better at is having a bigger and better team around, so that I can take a lot, more of the stresses and pressures
delegate
away from me.
Probably.
But that's as much me learning how to do it as it is finding the right people. But otherwise, more of the same, really.
And where can people reach you if there is a established business which is doing great in numbers and are looking for money?
I'm very easy to find online. I'm at www.matt-haycox.com. You can find me on there. I'm on all things social. I got a podcast as well. But Google Matt Haycox and I'll pop up and reach out, and I'll always reply to messages and help where I can.
Perfect. Thank you for joining me, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Subscribe now and join us on this beautiful journey.